Hey, 8th grade, Mr. Songer with you for Makeup Lesson 7. These are for lessons that took place on Friday, November 8th. We are working on our solos right now, and so for this lesson, I'm going to give you a couple directions, and then I'd like you to record the first 30 seconds of your solo and send it to me, and that will be for your makeup lesson credit. A couple things I'm going to be listening for when you record your 30 seconds. Number one, I want to hear some components of phrasing for woodwinds and brass. And what I mean by phrasing is I want you to be taking breaths at parts that make sense. Now, one indication of this would be if you have breath marks. You want to breathe only where you see those breath marks in the music. Your solo may not have any breath marks indicated. Instead, you might have long phrase markings or slur markings. In that case, you want to attempt not to take a breath in the middle of one of those phrase markings. Again, we're talking about those long slurs. You don't want to breathe in the middle of those. Make sure you take a breath outside of those, the beginning and the ends of those, okay? If you have neither phrase markings or breath marks, then you need to make an executive decision of where the best places are to take a breath. One way to think about this is to do 4-bar phrasing or 2-bar phrasing where you're taking a breath at the end of every 2 measures or every 4 measures and trying to be consistent with that. Try not to take breaths, in the middle of measures. Try not to take a breath at the end of every single measure. Try to take breaths after longer notes as opposed to shorter notes where you can cheat the long note a little bit to sneak a breath in. And then obviously whenever you have a rest, that's acceptable to take a breath as long as you don't come in late after the rest. For example, if you have a really short rest like an 1/8 rest or a quarter rest, you don't want to take such a long breath that you come in late on the next entrance, okay? So those are some components of phrasing that I'd like to hear in your 30 seconds that you send to me. Um, Percussion phrasing is important as well. It kind of comes in a different form, I guess, than breathing because you don't play a wind instrument. Some things to think about there is if you are doing a roll, for example, make sure that you are rolling for the full duration of the note. Just an example, a snare drum roll, let's say you have a half note with a roll on it, make sure you're doing a full 17-stroke roll and not cutting that off short. If you have a roll on a mallet instrument, again, make sure that single stroke roll is lasting the duration of that note. Don't cut it off short, okay? The second thing I want to hear on your 30 seconds is I want to hear good tone quality. And this applies to all instruments, including percussion. I'll start with kind of addressing woodwinds and brass. Again, make sure to produce a good tone quality. It all starts with your air and your support of your air. Make sure you're taking a big breath from your diaphragm, from your stomach area, okay? Don't be breathing from your shoulders. If your shoulders are going up when you're breathing, you're probably breathing shallow, and that's not getting as much air as you can. If you're breathing from down here, that air starts at the bottom of your lungs and then fills up all the way to the top of your lungs, and you get more air in that way. So that's where it all starts, taking a big, supported, deep breath for woodwind and brass players. And then when you're actually playing, making sure you control that air stream into your instrument. Sometimes we have a tendency, even those of you who take really good deep breaths when you play, to let all that air out on the first 1 or 2 beats of the measure after you take that breath. And then you have to take a breath again very quickly after that because you're putting too much air through your horn and you're not controlling how much is going through. The whole purpose of taking a big breath is to go longer and then also to have a good sound and a good tone quality. So that big breath is important, but then make sure that you are putting only enough air through the horn to produce that good sound, okay? You should always be thinking about your sound, even if you're playing tough technical passages like 1/8 notes and 16th notes. Always make sure that sounds good. Even if you're playing high notes or low notes, those notes should sound good. Always make an effort to make them sound good and have that fully supported sound with your air. Now, percussionists, again, you're not using air to produce sound, okay? But you can produce a good sound by making sure that you are playing the instrument in the correct spot on the instrument. So if you're playing the snare drum, you want to make sure that those snares are running from you to the back of the drum and not sideways, okay? So that when you're playing, your snare drum sticks are playing right over the snares, okay? If you're playing softer, you want to move a little bit more towards the edge of the drum. You want to make sure that you aren't playing with your drumsticks going way too high. You want to make sure that you are using your wrists and not, doing the elbow thing, okay? You want to make sure that your placement is good with your arms, that you don't have your elbows stuck against your stomach, okay? Make sure that they're out a little bit. Make sure you're holding your sticks in the proper place, that you're not holding them too high, that you don't have your first finger sticking out, things like that, okay? If you're playing a mallet instrument, make sure that you're playing the bars in the correct spots. Again, you don't want to play the bars right where the little cord goes underneath them, or on the bells where the posts go underneath them that secure the bars on there. Okay, the sound isn't as good. Make sure that your mallet is rebounding off the bar and that you're not leaving it there for a little bit, which makes the sound deaden. All right. So, and then make sure that you're doing your sticking patterns correctly, that you're doing alternating strokes or paradiddles or whatever the sticking pattern is for the song that you are doing, that you're doing that correctly. Sometimes I notice on mallets, for example, a lot of you who are right-handed tend to do a lot of notes with your right hand and don't do a lot with your left. Okay, make sure that's not happening. You're involving both mallets to produce a good tone and also good phrasing. That kind of goes back to that other point. So these are all things to think about that I want to hear in your 30 seconds. Don't just record 30 seconds and be like, okay, I'll get the right notes and rhythms, blah, blah, blah. Actually strive to get some musicality, good tone quality, phrase, breathe in the right spots, hold those rolls out for the full duration, okay? And send me that recording. So there you go. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.